Hello, and welcome to the Simply Business Interview Podcast, a podcast created by business owners for business owners. I am your host, John Jennings. And I believe that most business owners are working way too hard for much too little. And one of our issues is that we overcomplexify things. I believe the answers are almost always within us or within our reach. I like to say that I'm a simple man with simple ideas. So welcome to Simply Business. All right, I'm really excited for this week's edition of the Simply Business Podcast. We have Scott Boehnlein, who's an entrepreneur and the owner of Family Realty, with us today. I'm looking forward to hearing more about his story and some of the things he's involved with. So, Scott, welcome to the program. And why don't you first just introduce yourself? Tell us a little bit about how you came about operating this business you have.
Absolutely, John. I appreciate your time. Thanks for reaching out. I love to tell my story because my story is not a story of hand given or spoon fed. I started I like to always back up and tell people my history, and so they understand a little bit about me. I struggled in grade school for years because I didn't realize I was dyslexic. And so I wasn't a very good student, but what it did is it taught me how to adapt and how to find different ways to reach a goal or to reach success, and going through many different grade schools and that. So I tell people that was my main thing is really that's what helped me build my personality and my perseverance. My real estate practice started in a little island called Key West, Florida. This is really just a cool story. I graduated from University of Kentucky, and I moved back to Louisville, took a job like you're supposed to, a sales job, and worked about 3 months and was one of the top salesmen in my field. I was selling commercial refrigeration and doing really well, but I just knew there was something else I wanted to do. So I went to my father, and I said, "Hey, I think there's something else out there. I want to grow. I want to find something else." So I rented my house, sold my car, and I flew down to Key West, Florida with a backpack and a bike. And what I did is I became a bartender, and really just trying to find myself, figure out what I really wanted to do. And I met a gentleman in a bar, and he recognized that probably I had a little bit more education, a little bit more drive than the average person working the bar. And he said, "Hey, have you ever thought about real estate?" And I said, "Well, what's that?" "I own a house in Louisville, Kentucky." He's like, "Well, I flip houses. I do these things. I rent." But he drove a really nice F-150. And I said, "You know what? One day I want one of those." And so that's how I started. He brought me in. He said, "Hey, I'll bring you partners on this house. You live in this house. I'm going to subdivide this land. I'm going to build here." And that's how I got my start. And I saw how much money realtors were making. So I went and got a real estate license. And that's how I started in real estate. But the one thing about my real estate career is I started in an area where I didn't know one person. And that's what made me really strong. I went and I found, which John, I know you're big on this. I went to find my dad always said is find a good mentor or a good coach. Yeah. And I found a gentleman named Ed. He was a military guy that literally just taught me to get on the phone, knock on doors, and don't take no for an answer. And that's really where my career kind of took off, as I understood if I surround myself with good people, then good things are going to happen. And I spun my wheels for a little while because everybody wants instant success when they're young. And I actually left that firm, went to another one. And like some of us we're young and dumb. I thought I could do it myself. And I failed miserably. And so I went right back and said, "Ed, will you take me back?" He took me back. I followed everything he said and created an accountability. Within 6 months of me coming back to the Coldwell Banker firm, got the top agent spot and got to park up front, and really just kind of built my career from there. That's where I started in there. But currently what happened is 3 years later of getting my license, I decided I wanted to come back home and start a family. And
Yeah.
so I moved back to the Louisville, Kentucky area. But I did have real estate offices. At one time, Family Realty was all the way from Destin, Panama City, Florida, all the way up to Louisville and Indiana. And so that was a big thing. I came back here and I started, my firm is now 21 years old, and proud to be family owned and still sole owner. And that's a little bit of my story.
Yeah, that's awesome. Most people end their careers in Key West, not start them there.
I want to go back. Back.
We go back about once every year or two. We enjoy Key West.
Yeah.
We probably could compare some notes. Maybe we've been at the bar. You bartended that.
Yeah.
Probably not at the same time. That is a cool story, and you hit on several of the things that we talked about. I just came back from a conference, our Focal Point annual conference, and our theme was the 4 Ps, and it was purpose, preparation, pace, and persistence. 4 keys for success. And I think you hit on all 4 of those. In that, in fact, I think you may have mentioned purpose and persistence by name. It's so true that when you start a business up, you have to. You're going to make mistakes, like you said. You're going to. I don't know how many business owners I've talked to will say, "Yeah, my first business, well, it didn't go that well."
Yeah. You think
and I had
what
some
to
side
do.
hustles that didn't do very well myself. I did. I had some of the same kind of experiences. So, yeah, I know what you mean.
I tell people it's like when you ask a gambler how he's doing, he only tells you about his wins, doesn't tell you about his losses.
Yeah.
I bring this story, and this is something that I always share with everyone, is in my Key West days, I started flipping house and I had a lot of money, a really lot of money. And then the market crashed in 02 and 03.
Right.
I went to a negative cash flow position of about $25,000 a month. I went all the way down to $350 in my bank account. And I said, I will never feel that stress again. I tell people when I'm coaching people, because I do real estate coaching, and that is, I call that the sparkler effect. It's like when you give a little kid a sparkler and you tell him 100 times not to touch that end. Yeah. But until he touches that end, then he'll learn not to touch that. For you and I, it's probably the cigarette lighter in your mom's car. When, they push it in and they say, don't touch that. We've all touched that, and then we learn. But I believe success is driven from our failures. And in that point in my life in 02, I'll never forget it. I felt the stress and that. I said, Dad, all these people are going bankrupt. Should I just turn these properties back into the bank? I don't know if I can get out of that. And he said, son, if you sign something and you say you're going to pay somebody, you figure it out. And so what I did is I figured it out, and I then built everything back up from that $350 to what I have today, which is, and I truly believe that even in real estate, when I don't get a listing or I don't get an agent that I want, I reevaluate, and we need to constantly reevaluate. Even as old as we are, I'm constantly reevaluating how can I get a little bit better and grow.
Yeah, it's awesome. You experienced that 3 feet from gold scenario you're probably familiar with, from Think and Grow Rich, the guy who took all his family money and dug out in California for gold, and finally gave up and went back and, sold the land. And the next guy, hit gold 3 feet later.
Yeah.
And we always say that most business failures happen when people throw in the towel, and they're 3 feet from gold, and you were $350 from gold.
Yeah.
And you could have very easily given up. For me, it was 2020 when 85% of my revenue disappeared one week, because of COVID. And I went, I don't know if I want to ride this thing up and down all the time like this. And I seriously thought about going back to just a regular job. I'm so glad I didn't, but boy, that was my 3 feet from gold moment. So appreciate you sharing that. So how did you pivot into, I know you do some coaching and you mentioned that, so let's just go on and jump into that a little bit. How did that business come about, and how does that kind of fulfill you that purpose you talked about earlier?
Yeah, I believe in totally in giving back. I believe in the financing. I believe in the 60-30-10 rule, where you better save at least 60% and only spend 30, and always give 10% back, but always give 10 to 20% of your time back. I see these days that everybody is a fast food society. They want instant success and things like that. So the coaching really comes from, I built my business about relationship and not following a paycheck. And I believe we all go back into those moments where we call people younger than us, they don't understand what it's like to build a relationship, and they want to buy leads. They want to go to Zillow, they want to go to homes.com, and they want to buy leads and that. But once you turn off that faucet, then those leads go away. And if you don't develop a relationship and a core. So what I did is I'm still struggling on getting an audience, because every business is built, on a recession. When things get hard, when things are easy, like it's been in real estate the last 4 years, people think they don't need my help. I've had more people reach out in the last 4 months than I have ever, because now they're like, oh my gosh, what do I do? My income's down. Maybe I do need to develop a sphere of influence, and maybe I do need to understand how to nurture relationships instead of just being reactive. That is reactive, going to get a deal and being reactive, but be proactive. But real coaching, as you can tell in my voice, and that's why, John, I love speaking with people like yourself, I'm so happy to see success. When one of my agents just bought her first house, I mean, that's more than money to me. It makes me feel happy. And that's ultimately what I want to do. I want to do more coaching and just be able to help people. And it's, if I can give them just a little bit to take that improves their career, and I've done it outside of real estate, that I just believe that it's self-rewarding for me. And and that's why I got into coaching. I really feel good about when somebody tells me, hey, I sold my first house, or I bought my first house, or did that's success. But I'd like to give back, because God's blessed me and I've been successful, and I'd just like to give back.
Yeah. Same here. In fact, I have some saved voicemails from people who said, John, I just closed my biggest deal ever, or, those types of things. Like, man, I like having that, that knowing that you've impacted somebody. It's a positive thing.
Absolutely.
It is great to do that. So let's go back to those early years and those struggles and that persistence it took. I see this in young business owners today, all the time, and I don't want to call it out for a generation or a certain age range, but I see a mindset in a lot of, first time business owners, let's say they're in their 20s or early 30s, that they do want that Zillow effect, that first, oh, I'm just, I'm gonna do this, click here, do that, swipe left, we're gonna do a few things, everything's gonna be instant, and then, in a few years I'm gonna flip this business and sell it for 5 times what I've put into it. And I always know that's either going to be a really tough coaching conversation, or probably not even probably not even a good relationship to start with. But I'm always a sucker for trying to help them out. How do you face that, or how do you try to help your young agents get through that kind of mindset?
I tell people time is your most valuable asset. I don't care if you sell 100 million, and if you sell 100 million and you're spending 150,000 to get there, it doesn't make sense that you keep spending to try to grow. So what I mean by that is so the average agent sells about 1.5 houses a year. And so a lot of people aren't doing this very, very good. And then it's the old 80-20 rule. The top 20 of us are still doing 80% of the business. Why are we doing 80% of the business? It's because when you look at, okay, I want to make 200,000 a year, but I'm going to spend 125,000 to get there. The amount of time that it still takes to react to these online leads and these lead services that are feeding you things that are just selling you advertisement takes a lot of time. And so what I always look at is I talk with my people and I say, what is your goal? And I always say is, I don't want to set your goal. So I tell them to set their own goals. And when they set their own goals, then I back into, okay, how much time are we going to spend on this? And then time versus the return. That's the most important thing. So to kind of wrap all that up is, when I talk to my people, I just say, if we build it the right way, the average business takes 5 years to tell you if you're successful. If you make it 7 years, they say sometimes, is if you build it successfully and worry about the relationship and don't worry about just being, I always say, when I get that card that says I'm the number one agent, that doesn't mean a whole lot to me. It's, are you successful in your own mind? And so what I tell people is if we build the business the right way and be patient about it, that you can be successful like myself or like these other ones. And it's not all about driving the BMW right now. It's not all about getting the big house. So I know I kind of rambled there a little bit, but my point to it is the first thing they want to do is they come in, they get a big check, they want to go buy a BMW. Well, then they got to pay for the BMW. So I really try to tell them, if you want to be where I am, debt free, don't have any worries. If I don't sell anything a month, then what we have to do is we just got to just trust me for about a year and a half, and then the success will come. So that's my
What was it? I think it's Dave Ramsey who always says, look at the when you see the BMW and the small house, you know that's the poorest guy on the street.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I have agents all the time that drive better cars than I do. I drove an F-150 until I could.
I was going to ask you if you ever got your F-150.
I did. I owned 3 of them at one time. I mean, through years or whatever. I thought that was the biggest thing. You know, I thought that was there. But, you know, my F-150s, when I sold them, they had 175,000 miles on them. And, but yes, I did get the F-150, but it took a long time. So,
I'm the same way with, for me, it's the Lexus ES. I'm on my 3rd of those, and I've driven every one of them to 200,000 plus. And people go, why don't you get a new car? Why don't you lease that? You know, you can keep it fresh. I'm like, I pay that thing. I pay mostly cash or pay it down quickly, and then I enjoy it free for a long time. And that's not as sexy that way, but it's you build more wealth for sure when you can avoid debt.
And I tell people the most successful people are not the people, they don't talk about it. They don't talk about money. And that my most successful people, you'd walk right past, and that's in there. So, you know, it's up to you whether you're doing this to impress other people, or you doing this for, I go all the way back to family and my time. My family and my time are the most important things. And if you center yourself around that, you can build a very successful business. Any way you look at it.
Yeah, absolutely. And you know, that whole thing about how it takes time to build relationships, you know, you can like you said, you can generate a lot of revenue quickly. There's a lot of ways to generate revenue, and I can generate a lot of revenue and have no money in my account at the end of the day, or I can take time and build relationships and build my business more organically. And it takes time and sweat and everything else, but you know, eventually it gets to a point where, like this morning, I get a text, "Hey, I've got a good referral for you. How do you want me to introduce you to him?" That's what you get when you build it over time based on relationships.
And I think you run into those guys all the time, whether it's guy or woman, where he's done 7 different things and his business card says 10 things on the back. He was an investment, he was in insurance. He's always trying to find that next one, but he's not taking time to basically build that business. And it's hard for kids and younger people to hear that. But you know, the most successful people have done it over time and done it the correct way, and not just, but like you said, I mean, I know a lot of businesses that are in doctors during COVID. I was talking to some bankers. There were so many doctors that needed lines of credit because they were one paycheck away from being broke. And so once that faucet I talk about all turned off, it's there. And you know, you can be happy in your life, your wife, and your marriage, and a lot of different things with your kids if you don't have that stress in there. And so I don't care if you want to generate $100 million worth of revenue, it doesn't make any sense if you're spending, $999 million on
Yeah.
advertising. That you're just creating so much stress and you're going every which way. And that's my company. To just back up on my company is built on, I want to have a nice, small, a certain size. And every company, I think, has to find their size, whether they're that smaller company or they're going to be this big company. Being big is always not good. It makes a lot of headaches out there.
Yeah. There's stress in being the larger you get, for sure. So what was, after you got past those startup years, you moved back to Louisville, you got established. What was the biggest surprise to you when you really got the business established? What are one or two things that you learned that you weren't expecting?
So things that kind of held me back that wasn't expecting is every person you got to deal a little bit differently with. So growing my agency, I got to realize that their sales technique is not mine. And so a lot of times I struggled to keep agents because in my firm, because I'm like, hey, if they're not writing handwritten notes, if they're not on the phone, if they're not texting, if they're not door knocking, then they're not doing anything. And I got to understand that I can coach and I can do things, but they're never going to be me. They have to develop their own style. And as I've gotten a little bit older, I've understood, well, I just got to be there to support people and to really give them guidance when they need it. But I can't, like I said earlier, I used to tell them, hey, you got to sell $5 million. But that's maybe not their goal. They're a mom first. They only want to sell 4 houses a year. So let's let them be what they want to be, as long as they're not making any ethical mistakes or any mistakes like that. That's really big. But some of the things that I've learned is, because of 02 and 03 happening, is I didn't start flipping houses in 07 and 08. I just worked on my real estate company. So that's when I grow the past. I'm actually looking forward to this recession or whatever we're having right now in 2025, because I believe that people don't know what to do right now. And I've actually had my most successful years the last 2 years when things have been a little bit slower for other agents, because I know what to do. I know how to react in different scenarios. The other thing I want to mention is I talk to people all the time. Is people come to me and say, hey, I want to do Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, or X, and I want to do Zillow leads, and I want to do all these. They do all these different things, but they don't do any of them well. I believe that if you can pick one thing, and maybe you're really good at Facebook, and so let's just harp on that. Let's be the best person. Let's study it. Let's be geeky about it, and let's do that. But I think in any business, you got to know your line. It's like a clothing store, that did all shoes, and all of a sudden they start selling underwear. Well, that doesn't make any sense. They're not good at that. They're good at selling shoes. So you got to be careful on diversifying too much. And that's when I didn't get into property management. I just stood in residential real estate and have stayed my lane and have tried to do it the best I can. And I think that's important.
Yeah, we talk a lot about niching down, and a lot of people want to be all things to all people. And I have this saying that says, if you want to serve, if your ideal client is anybody, then you have to talk to everybody, and you end up with nobody, because you have to really have that niche that you need to focus on. You might pick up some stragglers here and there, different niches, but
you can get lucky.
You've got to focus.
Right.
Yeah.
And I tell everybody, you've got to pick, if you're going to do a marketing campaign, or if you're going to do something, 6 months is the minimum. I like to see things done for a year to really know if nothing happens in 30 days. So, if it does, you're paying for an ad, you're paying for a lead. But if you do it the right way, 6 months to a year, that's when you start seeing the return. So,
yeah. Well, I mean, it's the old, the swipe left, swipe right doesn't work in business.
No,
it just doesn't. And there's not that instant gratification type thing isn't there. Well, cool. So what are some of the challenges you're facing today? You mentioned that you're kind of excited about recession. You're, I think, the first person I've had on here that said that.
I am,
but I understand because my business does well in those times as well. And you're right. When business is easy, people don't think they need help. And then when they start to struggle, they go, "Oh wow, who?" When I look around, isn't struggling. And it's like, oh, yeah, there's one. So tell me about what you're
excited about that for. Most of the
yeah.
time, if you look at the historic of all businesses, the best businesses were developed during the recession or during the downtime, finding a new need. And our industry as a real estate firm has gone through a lot of litigation. They've changed our commission structure. They've changed a lot of things. And a lot of people are running from it. And I'm embracing it. I'm doing the change. I'm not fighting it. The longer you fight, markets change. It's kind of like when Amazon came in and all the retailers were freaking out and like, oh my God, what are we going to do? You have to adapt. But you can't be so reactive when a recession happens. I'm like looking at the market right now. I'm saying, okay, who are the real buyers? Who are the people that really need to buy? And right now it's people that really do need to downsize because they wanted to downsize during COVID. And now they're not worried about that as much, and that the interest rates don't really affect them. But I'm kind of retargeting my market to understand that at this time, like there's not a lot of foreclosures yet because the rates haven't sparked up like 07 and 08. But there's in a recession, people just stop because they'll stop spending money because they're not making money, and they just stop. And then in our industry, everyone knows about 7 realtors. If I ask you right now, you could probably rattle 7 in there, but you probably don't know who's still in business right now. I mean, you don't know who got out of the business. If you haven't heard from them in 3 to 5 months, you're probably going to forget that they were a realtor.
Yeah.
And so I stay in front. And so this recession is I've gained agents that have wanted to really start working again from other firms. And I'm in a big transition. I turned 50 this year. So, this is my last little pocket of, of when I'm going to there. So I'm trying to grow this business successfully and do it the right thing. But I also surrounded myself with people that really want to work. If they don't want to work, I don't take them. So,
yeah. Cool. So, you just told your age. You're
sorry.
And I know you're fine. I'm about 10 years ahead of you. But we're constantly having to stay ahead of the game. I mean, technology is constantly changing. You got AI coming in. I'm sure people are that's impacting your market. You had Zillow and all these other things come in. You seem to be a person who's adapted well to that. How do you stay in front of what's coming in your industry?
So I don't turn it off. I am a reader and researcher. So, I'm looking at the people that are using the AI and I'm saying, okay, what's working for them? What's there? But I don't always just jump on the new trend. My uncle used to say is I find somebody that's doing it really well and that is having some success in it. And then I go research it and I do it a little bit better and I copy the shit out of it. So what I'm doing is there's no sense in reinventing the wheel. I'm letting other people there, but I am aware that, AI is a key term, that everybody's AI agent or AI friendly and those things. It's the new key term. But what we try to do is, like I just changed the website, is I try to change every 4 to 5 years to adapt to make sure I'm not way behind. You can't be 10 years behind, but I believe every four years you need to adapt your business and just see what everybody else is doing. So I just look at my competition. I watch at what they're doing. And then I look in other markets because I think it's important to understand where our market is. We're in Kentucky, so things start and the West Coast and different things and then the South. And I'm actually looking at what people outside of my area are doing, not what my competition here is doing, to see if it would work here. And that's what in different areas, I think you need to look outside your area because there might be something that you find outside your area where, hey, that agent's doing it really well, or that company's doing it really. Why are they doing well in that market? Why can't we duplicate that here? And that's I've always operated. So I'm talking to people outside of Louisville and saying, what are you doing? So I went to a new website and we've got some new things and we've got an app, we've got different things, but I just saw things that are being successful outside my market. And I think that's important, is to look outside, even if you're in a business, hell, if you're in the business of selling pizza and that, well, you ought to see how the hamburger guys are doing, how quick are they getting things out the window? Let's see if we can incorporate, why do they have a line running out their door, even though we're not selling the same product, but maybe I can adapt that principle into my business to create a longer line. Those are the things I really look at.
Awesome. So what's next for you?
I'm a man of really try to motivation and not stop. Like my dad said, is not get flat butt syndrome. Not just be happy of what I've got right now, but always setting goals. A little key that one guy always told me is always empty your bank account out. And what I mean by that is my checking account, I always keep it a low level and I transfer the money so I can't easily get to it. I don't save my savings account on my line. I literally have to go there and transfer money in there. Try that. I tell everybody that's listening, try that. And when you look at your bank account, you got a big old chunk in there, whether you think 3,000 or 10,000 or whatever's a lot of money, you don't work as hard. So that's really something that always there is. I make it hard to go get my money in my savings and those things. So what's next for me? I'm trying to find the next thing that's going to stimulate my mind and not be flat. But I want to keep the real estate business going, but I'm always looking for other ventures and keeping my ears open and surrounding myself with successful people, because as they say in high school and grade school, if you surround yourself with losers or people getting in trouble, you're probably going to be in trouble. But so I'm really feeding off the generation that's 10 to 15 years ahead of me and talking to them and say, hey, what did you do for your next 10 years? And I'm not done yet, so they say the most money happens is, your next big generation of success and things like that happens when your kids leave the nest, because then you've got all this time. I can't play golf all this. I'd love to, but I can't play golf every day. So I'm trying to find that next big thing. And whether it's coaching or, being with people like you and surrounding myself with great people and great coaches like yourself, that's what I'm going to do. And that's why I took this call. I believe you're doing a great job and networking and doing it the right way. And that's what I want to surround myself with.
Well, I appreciate that. And I feel like I've met somebody that we're just very much simpatico. I think we can have some, I think we can have many more good conversations. And I'm glad the world as it is, was able to kind of spy on this conversation and hear a little bit. If folks are interested in learning more about you, how should they contact you?
I would go to, you can go to familyrealty.com. That's family, REALTY.com, or you can go to realtorcoach.com. But Family Realty is my main site, and I'd be happy to always help or anything like that, or lend a helping ear. And just, I do free 15-minute phone calls a lot of times, just where I listen to people and just see if I can help them. And I'm always honest if I can help them or not, or maybe I can point them in John's direction. We all bring different things to the table. So it's important just, again, to surround yourself with good people and have a resource. So hopefully I can be a resource for people, and John and the great people that you have on your podcast here can help other people be successful.
Yeah. Well, I appreciate that. And I hope if there's any struggling or aspiring real estate agents out there, they'll reach out to you for some coaching, because it sounds like you know exactly how to build a business the right way. So,
well, thank you.
Let's hope they do that.
Well, great, John. Well, I appreciate your time and enjoyed the conversation.
Yeah, same here.
Thank you for listening to today's episode. If you liked it, please share or like it on whatever platform you use. You can find me on social media. On most platforms, I'm John K. Jennings. My first book is also available. Your Baby is Ugly tells you about 10 truths that business owners need to hear, but often won't, and how to overcome them. You can find it on Amazon. Just search for Your Baby is Ugly. And be watching for our next episode, where I'll interview another business owner who will share their stories and insights into what it's like to create a great business.